The Spitfire. We've all heard of it, but how many have seen the Italian variant? Hey guys, it's modelling time. When I was younger, I made a kit from a different manufacturer that was an Italian Spitfire. It's in a sort of all metal finish and I've always hated it. When I was a kid, obviously I was really proud of what I did, and it's been on display at my parents' ever since. As I've got older, I've sort of noticed the kit and thought, oh, wish I'd done a better job on that. It was quite a cool subject. However, whilst I was at Modelcraft 2022, you can see the video up there for that, I found this version of it from AZ Models instead, and I had to get it. It was the first model I think I bought the entire day, and I was gobsmacked. I know, I could probably buy decals for it, but there's just something about buying a complete kit and just getting on with it that I just love, and you know, it's much more practical. If you've got a specific project and you're buying a kit knowing that you're going to buy extra decals, that's one thing, but for me, I was never going to buy a Spitfire just to build the Italian variant. Unlike usual, I'm not going to be doing either a separate video or in this video the history of the Spitfire. That's because I'm doing another video on the Spitfire later on. I mean, you guys have seen me build it on live stream, so you know it's coming. So let's crack straight into it. What's inside the box? This is what we are looking at today, an Italian Spitfire. AZ Models, and it's the interesting camouflage schemes. It's limited edition kit. Have a look at the instructions first. So, it's sort of very capey like, it just says don't use these bits. Instruction looks pretty straightforward. There's no photo etch parts. It should be quite a quick build. Okay, so decals. Here's what we have. Let's just get that to focus. There we go. So we've got Czechoslovakian, I guess it probably would have been at the time. Italian up here. And Greek markings. So obviously I'll be saving everything except the Italian, because the Italian is what we'll be using today. The Italian markings are the most simple, I think, out of all of them, to be perfectly honest. The Czech one is the most interesting. Both the Czech ones are the most interesting, so what you can actually see here is the other markings that are available. So 1947 Hellenic Air Force, this Czech one from 1946, and I think this is my favourite one, 1948, modification made for Israel, so these ones are being sent over to Israel, I guess. So they look pretty good, a lot of good detailing on them. They don't look bad at all. Let's just have a look at the fuselage in a bit more detail. So I think you can see it looks pretty nice, honestly. Same for the wings. Look pretty swish. Have a look at the underside wing now. Really helps you see the Spitfire shape of it all. Now some of these parts we're not going to use. You'll see you're getting several different tail sections here. We're only going to be using one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is probably a 7 out of 10 straight off the bat. There's like no distortion through it. It's really super clear, like probably one of the clearest we've ever seen. So yeah, I'd highly rate the clear part of this. We'll put it back in its little bag, so that it's nice and safe. Well, that's it, you've seen inside the box, and it's quite a good looking kit if I must say so. So it's time, without any further hesitation, to get into the building of this beautiful AZ Models Spitfire in Italian service. Okay, so we've got this lovely beige plastic to put together, and I'm just cutting out a lot of the big parts first of all. The big parts being like the wings, the fuselage, and then I'm going to move into the cockpit itself. I did and ahh about whether or not to glue the wings together initially, and ultimately decided against it, and I left it a bit later on, just before I was sort of assembling sort of the main components together. The cockpit, however, is pretty detailed. Before doing that though, I'm just cutting off any like sprue marks that there are on, you know, the model to make sure it all fits together really nicely, and then cutting out those cockpit parts as I've sort of previously mentioned, along with the decal for the cockpit as well. The cockpit is pretty detailed, as I say. It's a lot better than I would have expected at this scale, but because it's me, I'm not that into it. Cockpits are not my thing. I did mix a custom green just to get the closest colour I could for the inside of the cockpit, and also just dry fitting it to make sure everything looks okay, if it's okay, and so that I understand, how things should be looking in this cockpit. The cockpit is made up of a green and then a brown for the seat and then black for the actual instrument panel itself. It's pretty standard, there's nothing outlandish about this cockpit. Again, you could get really fantastic results if you cared more about cockpits. I just personally am not that fussed about 1/72 scale cockpits when it's, like a fighter of this variety, because you don't really see that much inside. Whereas things like my Blenheim, I did actually pay a little bit more effort in, I guess. So I am now gluing the wings together, as you can see. The wings, I did clip together as well afterwards to make sure I got the closest finish that I could. I don't think they super easy to fit together, but clipping, making sure everything goes down and tight and nice, because I am going to have to glue something onto the end of this as well. So making sure the ends are as thin as possible is also really going to help with that. So the wings are now done, and I'm doing the same to the fuselage, which has now got the cockpit inside as well. The wings do look pretty nice, and there are some extra features you just need to pop them to the bottom as well, such as the air intake. And I'm just putting those on before I actually, put the whole thing together, which for whatever reason I've done that off screen. You can see some of the marks now, so where it doesn't fully fit flush. Because I've done it quite soon, I have some flexibility and I can sort of glue and just try and make everything fit super nicely, but I am going to have to ultimately use some putty to make sure everything fits super nicely together, because, I think that's quite standard for model making, to be fair, isn't it, really? Nothing fits as it should do. So getting some melee put out, it's a case of just sort of mixing the two parts together and then popping it on. I am going to use this silicone pusher just to make sure I get it into the gaps as well, which I've just wetted to try and make sure it fits into all the little nooks and crannies. The edges of the wings I found particularly hard for this kit. They don't fit on super well, and they didn't seem to go on flush, and I even at one point swapped them around thinking maybe I'm just doing this wrong, and I wasn't. They just don't fit super well. You do have to use quite a lot of energy to make sure that you can get them to, fit super nicely, and I did put a lot of stuff on, and I actually ended up snapping them twice during the whole construction and painting process. So it is a pain, I'll be honest with you. You'd probably be better buying something that has the wings, not clipped, so you don't have to fuss around with it. At the end of the day, that's the kit I bought, and, when you've made your bed, you've got to lie in it. The undercarriage is being assembled as well, which actually held really well. I'm really impressed with the undercarriage. You know me, I'm a stickler for undercarriage. I always find them to be, I think ever since making Alpha Jets, I've just hated undercarriage. I'm really harsh on them. So when I get a kit that has good undercarriage, I'm always really, really pleased. Well, we're moving on from just popping in some milliput now, and we can see that the aircraft is pretty much at its completion. We do have to put the prop on, but we'll do that right at the end to make sure it just spin really freely as well. We've also got to do some sanding just to make sure everything, looks as nice as it can. We've primed it in Humbrol, and then boom, silver instantly. That's pretty much it in terms of painting. We do have to put some black on the nose of the aircraft, which I think looks really smart actually. And then after that, it's just a case of putting the decals on. Apologies for taking it off screen quite a few times. I don't know what was wrong with me making this aircraft. I just constantly seem to be taking it off the screen. You can see that I have done some masking just to make sure I cut some straight lines, and afterwards I did have to amend these because they weren't quite in the right place. So the lines probably aren't as super straight as they should be, but I mean, who has? Yeah, it's not perfect, but it is what it is at the end of the day. That's pretty much it. It's just a case of popping the decals on after this. The decals, there aren't even many of either. You've got the Italian roundels, and then the sort of the numbers that go onto the side, and I think a squadron badge that goes on as well, but other than that, that's pretty much it. There's nothing to this kit really at all. I've also painted the prop spinner, as you can see as well, which is black with yellow endings on it. That's all done freehand. I've not bothered masking it or anything. I've just used the brush to try and draw a straight line and just gone over it a couple of times to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And that's it. It's just really straightforward. The decals did come off really well, and they fit onto the kit really nicely as well. So there were no real issues with them. There wasn't a lot to do. It's very simple. And ultimately, it's a really nice kit to just finish off. So now you see me build it, I just wanted to clarify on a couple of things. I deliberately didn't do hyper, like, intense weathering on this kit because I decided that actually I'd much prefer to have a model that looks weathered but not like really hard done by. It's such a beautiful paint scheme that I want it to look, you know, like it's the pride of the Italian Spitfire fleet, so I've done it pretty much just as it would have been out of the factory. And you know what? It's a really basic paint scheme. It's really nice to remember my childhood and youth by making a kit that I'd done before, much like I did with the PZL TS11. But in this instance, there was no stress, there was no worrying, there were no like decals I had to buy afterwards. It was just, hey, here's a kit, let's build it. So let's have a look at my Italian stallion, the Supermarine Spitfire in Italian service. What do you think? I'm not too sad about it. I think it's alright. I don't think it's anything like absolutely amazing. I definitely can do better, and I have done better on kits that I've made afterwards, but I'm not too sad about this. I think it looks quite nice. It was a really easy build to do. It was just a case of, you know, pop it together, spray it, boom, done. And sometimes that's all a girl wants, is just to make a really easy to build kit. Would I personally buy this kit again? Probably not. Although there are interesting markings for both a Greek and Czech variant, I'm not a super Spitfire fan. Whoa, hold your horses, don't come at me. I'm not saying I don't love the Spitfire. It's an adorable aircraft, it looks absolutely fantastic and beautiful in the sky, but I'm much more a fan of trainer aircraft. And so building a million Spitfires is probably not something I'm ever going to do. However, if you're really into Spitfires, well, I guess let's go into buy or fly. Absolutely, buy this kit. I don't think you're going to see many Greek or Czech or Italian variants of the Spitfire around there, except people, you know, who might be in like an Italian Air Force SIG or Czech SIG or Greek SIG or whatever, or if you're from one of those countries. I've seen so many RAF Spitfires, and though they all look great and people put their hearts and souls into it, that's absolutely fine. The only person you have to please is yourself. But if you want to make something that's just a bit different about that, go for this. The construction of the kit was relatively simple. The only thing I absolutely hated was putting the wingtips on. Now, from what I can see, pretty much only the Italian variant that has this issue, so, you know, that's sort of an issue of my own creation. It was a pain, and I probably wouldn't opt to put those on. I probably would buy the actual kit if I was ever going to do this again. But at least having the options there, I think it would have just been better if you could snap the wingtips off rather than having to glue them on, because it's always easier to remove than to add, but it is what it is. I'm not someone who's super experienced with ASF models, so I couldn't possibly recommend the entire brand based purely on this kit. However, I was impressed enough that I wouldn't hesitate to buy another ASF models kit. It's not like some manufacturers I've experienced where I've built it and gone, you're probably not going to touch that again. Overall, this is probably one of the fastest projects I've ever done. I finished it in absolutely no time at all, and I think I've got a pretty good result at the end of it. If you're looking for something to literally build in just a couple of evenings after work, I can thoroughly recommend this. A lot of model kits will take a lot of time to put together, and then take some time to prime, and then finish and paint them and decal them, and to be honest, this one's so quick. Because it's single colour and you don't need to worry too much about, you know, the issues of heat and how that would affect the finish of the aircraft compared to, say, jet fighters, you can really get this one done quite quickly. And if you're like me, where you just really like the pristine look, you're going to get it done even quicker. It also gives you a good template to experiment on weathering as well, so there's another reason to be buying this kit. This is of course only applicable if you're doing the Italian variant, because if you're doing the Czech or Greek variant, it does look slightly different. And I don't know, I think the Greek one in particular looks pretty fierce. Oh, and one other thing, landing gear. The landing gear in this was so easy to do compared to like Airfix Spitfires that I've had. So anyway, sorry, I've ranted a very little bit about the Spitfire there, but I really enjoyed this kit and I hope you've enjoyed both watching me build it and looking at it. And yeah, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I know this video is a lot shorter than usual, but hey, sometimes that's just gonna happen. I didn't really want to talk about the history too much because, I'll be honest, I haven't had time to fully research the history of the Spitfire and Italian service, and I'm sure it's something that I'll go over in the future. I mean, there's an Italian Spitfire in War Thunder, so I could do it in that, perhaps. If you've liked what you've seen here today, please make sure you drop a subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you're notified of all new videos, and also when I do live streams, which tend to be on Sundays at 4:30. I do try and put like a live thing up a couple of days before, but I'll be honest, I forget quite a lot. I do tend to do videos both on the history of the aircraft and on the actual model kit as well, but again, it depends on sort of what I'm doing. Also, if you want to support me and my projects, head over to Ko-fi, link is in the description, and you can either do like a one-off donation or a monthly donation, and it just helps me build supplies for model kits. And yeah, well, I hope to see you next time then. Bye! Thanks for watching the video, I really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be notified of every new video on Mondays. You'll also be able to see me stream live on YouTube. Thanks again, I really appreciate it. Have fun modelling!